between our teachers and your children and you, of course. I've been very, very impressed and very grateful for how this transition has gone. I've talked to many of you. You have said that your children are still learning at a very similar clip, and that the transition from offline to online has been a good one. And I think that certainly speaks to the competency of our teachers, the dedication of your children and students. I hear folks getting up, they're up and out of bed, ready to go. Some of our folks are on the West Coast, so they've got it a little rough getting up at before 5 to get going. But it's been a good transition, and we've been very grateful for it. And I also think it speaks to the relationships that our teachers hold with your children. We've been able to traffic on those relationships, so to speak, and they show up online as they work together. And I think that's been a big part of our success story. So again, thank you to you for your dedication in making it happen. So if you can't quite see that slide, that's intentional. That says next year. There's a good deal of fog on this slide. And it just speaks to the nature of this situation that we're all walking through. Normally, we are able to outline our next steps, and we can tell you it's precisely what's going to happen when. But this whole experience has changed that, and we are operating in ways where we are only able to see a few feet in front of us, but we're taking the steps necessary. So I want to talk to you about what we've been up to over the past several weeks now. So this is a picture, a little graph here, a graphic that indicates scenario planning. There's a reason why this figure here is bald. He's clearly lost all his hair from doing this, which is, I think, part of the condition that comes with scenario planning, because there are just so many scenarios that you can think through when you begin to think about what next year could be like. And so I want to just help us kind of get to a primer on scenario planning as we think about it. So that is the graphic there on the left is an effort to boil the ocean, which when you start doing scenario planning, you just realize how many different scenarios they are. But for the sake of simplicity in communicating tonight, there are really 3 scenarios that we're looking at. We're looking at calendar-based scenarios, enrollment-based scenarios, and operational scenarios. So calendar, when will we start? Enrollment, how many students will we have? And operationally, what will it look like when we're here? When will we start? How many kids we'll have? And what will it look like when we open? So these are the things that we've been working through. And I want to focus the majority of the time in talking about scenario planning on the operational side. But before I do get there, on the calendar side, we are looking at a number of different options. What I'd ask you to do as you approach next year is to be flexible with fall dates. Okay, so we are planning, and this is the thing that I want to get across very clearly, we are planning for an August as normal from a time perspective opening. That's where all of our effort and our focus is going. You have to pick a point, and that's the point that we are focusing on. We are focusing on opening at our regularly scheduled calendar date. Now, of course, there are many factors that will influence that. We'll get into that in a minute. But that's where the efforts are. And we're going to do everything we can to open safely and open as close to normal as we possibly can. So that's where we're focusing. The calendar could be flexible. We could move the date back a couple weeks if we have to. We've looked at an October start. We're doing everything that we can to get a full school year in, even if it means starting a little bit late if we have to. Enrollment-based scenarios are simply a matter of obviously how many students that we have. 412 students is what we opened with and had this year. And we're built for a school right now to serve 400 plus students. But obviously, the less students, the changes that are necessary that one has to make as we approach a budget year and we think about what will be required to serve different levels of students that we have here. When we talk about students right now, we've been talking about primarily students, physical students, 412 physical students on this campus. But obviously what online has done has opened us up to the possibility of having more students, and we'll think about that together as well. But let's get to operational for a second, and let's just share a few things. So when you think about a school operating under social distancing requirements, your brain starts to short circuit pretty closely, because pretty acutely, because as you think about schooling, you know it's not built for social distancing. It's a communal effort. You have gatherings, large group gatherings, small group gatherings. You're working in pairs. You're working in groups of 4. You're in the dining hall, sitting with many friends. And all of those things are severely challenged by the concepts of social distancing. And so in the event that we're able to open, and there are these restrictions on us in terms of how we operate, what will school look like? And that's where we are spending a lot of our time. I have, as this slide indicates, I have launched a task force that is going to be very focused on how do we open as safely as possible in August. This group is made up of parents and faculty and past parents. There's a good cast of folks here with wide and varied experience that's going to be helpful for us as we plan a safe and healthy opening. All options will be on the table. We obviously will be looking for guidance from our state and local governments. We have developed good relationships with health professionals and health authorities during this time, and we'll be calling on them during our planning sessions. But we're getting working, we're getting after it, and we want to put together something that we can put before you all in the next 3 weeks. I'll talk a little bit more about timelines in a minute, but at the end of the day, what I just want you to know is that this is it's a strong group, it's a talented group, and it's a group that's ready to work on thinking through the different things that we would have to think through in the event that social distancing is in place as we open school for the 2020-2021 school year. And as we do that, I want to just call to mind a few things that I think we are positioned well to walk through this, to go through this together as a community. So when I think about our community, it's a health-focused, it's a responsible population. That's in our favor for sure. Nobody here is careless. Everybody wants to do what is best for their children. That's why you're sending them here. And so I have a high degree of confidence in our community. And in its ability to follow through on the things that we set up in order to preserve health and protect students and each other. We have experience. So in the head of school playbooks that they teach you about in the school, I did not come across what to do in a pandemic in a boarding school. That was a new one for me. But the good news is we got a lot of experience. If you recall, the situation with COVID-19 really metastasized here on Long Island and in this region in mid-March, right? So a lot of other schools had the luxury of being on spring break when this happened. So they were just out of the building already and no additional protocols needed to be taken. The folks were gone. Not the case for us. Our early spring break gave us a crash course in how to mobilize and deal with this pandemic while you still had a high volume of students on the campus. From a boarding perspective, when we closed everything down on March 13th, we still had 103 boarders that we were caring for. We are down to 7 now, but we learned a whole bunch about how to quarantine, how to keep socially distanced, how to do dining hall procedures. I mean, we went through it all, and we learned a lot. And I think we have the experience to be able to weather whatever is coming next year. Not to say that we're experts by any means, but we certainly have our sea legs under us and are thinking through rightly, I think, what needs to be thought through as we talk about the school year. We have a controlled environment to a degree. I mean, that's something that we learned. We were able to shut down access in and out of the campus. That's obviously something with day families and day students that we have to think through, but we're not talking about a super large population that we're needing to control. It is a controlled environment, and so we can do better, I think, than most in terms of understanding what the risks are, where people have been, et cetera. don't want to overplay that, but I don't want to undersell it either. I do think that controlled environment is in our favor. And we have established lines of communication. And look, I mean, this is going to be really important for us to communicate well as a community, to keep each other informed, to help each other make good decisions. We have that kind of relational, which is where the next point, but that relational setup here, where we will need to be sharing with each other what's going on in the school with our children and our students' health, as much as obviously we can under health requirements, HIPAA requirements. But I just have a lot of trust in our ability to communicate well through this, and that will be really important for us to do that. And then, as I've kind of alluded to it, but the small relational community lends itself to the kind of relationships and communication that need to happen in order to walk through this together. So let's talk about online learning for a little bit. So as you've probably looked at scenarios and you look at different predictions that are out there, and everybody has one, in terms of what the fall will be like, or what the ultimate play out of COVID is. How is it going to continue? Will there be a second wave that comes, a sizable second wave? Will there be little episodic brush fires that come up here and there? Will this be with us for several years? People are saying lots of different things. And so the reality is we would be foolish to think that we're going to come back here next year, no problem at all, there will be no issues, we'll march through the year, and this will not affect us in any way. I'd love that scenario. I pray for that scenario, but I can't count on that scenario. So the possibility of going back online for a season is something that we are actively planning for. And when we talk about online, we got thrown into this deal together pretty quickly there in March. And I'm, again, as I mentioned at the outset of the call, very impressed and grateful for the work of our teachers and your children in being able to pull it off in a positive, learning, advancing way. But like everything else, we'll get better at it. And we're already seeing that. We're seeing great collaboration amongst our faculty as they share tips and tricks and learn new technologies that will be helpful for future endeavors on online learning. We will again look at the schedule and how we can do the best class day that we would lay out. What does that look like? Is it still 8 to 12? Is it over the course of the day? We will be planning intensely to make sure that this experience is the absolute best that it can possibly be for your children. And so Sean's going to talk in a minute about the summer courses, but we're going to get a chance to continue to develop and refine our offerings even over the summer to make sure that in the event that we have to be back online for any period of time in the fall, winter, spring, whatever that may be, that it will be an even better experience than it has been this year. And it's been good, but we know it can be better. And we're aiming for that to ensure that it's the best quality for your children. I'll also say that online learning in the fashion and format that we've done it has also opened our eyes to its possibilities and what it can do for us as an institution. When this all happened, we had already, as you know, been thinking about online learning. And the beginning of this year, we had that AP Stats class that was taught online, and we had been actively investigating this possibility for the future of our school. Well, this situation certainly put a jetpack on those ambitions and launched us into our future. And we have been in the process of developing partnerships with some pretty well-known, sophisticated folks in the industry to help us with not only our offering to our current students, but also to think about how to scale the Stony Brook experience and launch it out into the wider world. We're working on a couple of very exciting third-party content relationships and partnerships that we will be able to offer to your children that will expand our abilities to reach students and teach them new topics, new technologies. It's really exciting. And so we'll be hopefully in a position to share that in a couple of weeks. But that's kind of been our side jobs as we've been working on everything else, is building out the Stony Brook experience for more people to be able to access which will ultimately be a better benefit for our school. We can talk more about that in a bit. All right, let me come to then what we would talk about from a standpoint. I know a question that's on a lot of folks' minds is the cost. And so this slide, hopefully, is conjures up some good memories from Wizard of Oz for some of you, but it's serving a couple of levels here for me as we think about it. So we are planning for what our financial future looks like, and I know you are too. And I know that some of you have been affected by this crisis, and it is of great concern to you. And I'd say a couple of things. I'd say, first of all, that we are committed to walking with our families, that we want to come through this as whole as we possibly can. We are anticipating a trough of some kind. It'd be a miracle if there weren't. And so the questions of what is our tuition price? And what about deposits? And what about refunds? We publish guidance on our website, our COVID-19 website, regarding refunds for this year, really for room and board for boarding folks. So you can access that information on our website on the FAQ page that talks about it. From a reduced tuition perspective, I think when we look at the prospect and possibility of having to be online for a longer period of time next year, then we are going to be prepared to really think about what a reduced tuition looks like. Obviously, if you're not participating in all that the school has to offer, it would be very difficult to charge the same tuition as if you were. So we will be developing and are in the process of developing some scenarios where there is a reduction in tuition price for a reduction of services across the board. But I just want to bring back and remind you that the value of this education, it has been a challenge to me. So I'm in my 15th year of running schools. And for 15 years straight, I was able to, the schools that I was a part of were able to increase enrollment. We were able to increase faculty pay. We were able to expand programs. And my understanding of business and the market and all these things, everything is wrong about this situation because we are having our best year, in terms of college outcomes. We had incredible momentum. Our robotics team was number 10 in the world out of 5,210 teams. We just had so much going for us, and there's not some scandal or some problem that caused these challenges. It's been something completely outside of our control. And so, I remind us that we have been on a very good trajectory, and I think at some level, very fairly priced relative to the market. And so, with that said, the cost of this education, is what it is. And we stand by that. But at the same token, we recognize that if the services are not delivered at the level in which they have been in the past, then we have to think about that. And we will be thinking about that. And we'll be publishing that and talking to you in the event that our situation has to change. For those of you who are worried about deposits, what I would say to you, if your financial situation changes, then just talk to us about that, right? Let's be in conversation about it. Let's be in relationship. We're not here to gotcha anyone. We're here to walk with you. And we're also here to preserve the business, right? Those things aren't at tension, but they do need some level of reconciling and massaging and working through. But we are preparing that this is a trough that we're going to get out of and be on the other side, hopefully soon, back to our normal upward trajectory that we've been on. Let me talk to you just a few minutes about nuts and bolts, some of the things that are important as we think about the end of the year. I will just say this, for those of you seniors, parents did not have to be on this call this evening because we're talking so much about next year, but we are planning a graduation ceremony for them in a couple of different fashions. So the first thing that we're doing is we have a video celebration that will be airing on graduation day, May 23rd. At 9 a.m. and we'll be sending that out to everyone to tune into. It's a great conglomeration of videos celebrating the seniors. They have an opportunity to say a few things. It's just it's a neat video tribute, this piece of software that we were able to acquire. I would also mention that there is going to be a drive-up parade on Chapman Parkway. One car per graduate family. Our teachers, socially distanced, standing apart, will be waving, holding signs, and just as a way of honoring them on their day. But then we've actually planned a graduation ceremony and a prom combo for the second weekend in August, and we're hoping to have as many seniors as we can back for that. So those are just some of the events that we're thinking about for our seniors to make sure that they feel honored. They were a delightful class and accomplished much, and we really want to honor them the best way that we can. Let's talk about Borders belongings pickup. Hopefully you've seen the information that has gone out for returning families. The best thing to do, we've boxed it up. Faculty members have all been assigned to students. We've boxed their stuff up, and faculty members will be in touch with you when it's ready for pickup if you are in the vicinity, or if you are far away. The best thing to do is to get it next year when your students come back. But if for some reason you want it shipped, we can do that. We will ship it for you. It will be a cost to you that will show up on your invoice, but we will ship it out to you. Day student locker cleanout. Look for information from Tonya Detweiler and Chris Ryan, depending on what division that you're in, for a day for you to come and get your child's belongings from their locker. I want Sean to talk just for a minute about summer courses. It's something that we're really excited about. We've seen an opportunity. Talk to many of you about this. It's a chance for your children to learn over the summer. Many summer camps have been canceled. So families are looking for something to do. We see this as a great opportunity for both of us to be able to advance learning over the summer. And hopefully you've seen the interest survey that was sent out, and Sean will talk a little bit more about that. So Sean, why don't you go ahead?
Great. Thank you, Josh. It's great to see you all. We certainly miss you a lot. I know lots of you are probably enjoying more time with your kids. I've got 4 of my own and I'm enjoying most of that. Maybe some of you are working on some new skills. I learned how to cut my own hair, so that was pretty cool. Don't tell me whether you think I succeeded or not, please. So one of the things that we started to recognize, Tonya and I had a meeting with some of the middle school families, and one of the things that started to emerge was a desire, a need for us to keep this thing going through the summer because of the concern about summer programs shutting down, as Josh pointed out. And we've been simultaneously getting ourselves ready for next year online. And so our teachers have been working very hard, not just to teach your students right now, they're doing that excellently, getting ready for all the last assessments and grading and all the things that come with that. At the same time, they've been going back over everything they've done this year and redoing it for this online format. So what better way for us to serve the need that you all are asking for, which is to provide an opportunity for students to advance their education, to get ahead, to maybe clear up room in their schedule next year so things are not so intense. And then also for us to continue to refine our online offering. So what we're going to be offering, as I pointed out in the survey, thank you to all of you who filled it out, it's super helpful for our planning purposes. It's going to be asynchronous learning, which means students go at their own pace. They work through the assignments as they go. It'll be fast-paced, it'll be intensive for sure. Combined with an Oxford-style tutorial, which would be synchronous online Zoom sessions where we have one teacher with 1 to 4 students, depending on what the enrollments look like. So very small, personalized feedback on the work that they're doing, the work that the students are doing. So it's a combination of asynchronous with synchronous. I did a simultaneous survey with all our faculty to find out who was interested in offering classes this summer, and I got a lot of great feedback from them and a lot of dovetailing between what they want to offer and what your students are interested in taking. So I'm going to share my screen real quickly and show you a little behind the curtain. This is something that's going to come out hopefully early next week, and we'll start opening up actual registrations for summer courses. You'll have until June 1st to register, so there's no rush on this, but I want to give you a sense of what we're going to be offering. So Josh, I would like to share my screen. Great. All right. All right, so hopefully you can see my screen now. This is a preview, it's tentative, so things could change, but I think we're feeling pretty solid at this point. So we're gonna offer an early summer session, we're calling it. We assume that'll be mostly for Stony Brook, current Stony Brook students only, because all the other schools are still in session. But it will be open in case there are other schools that are done by now, or there are students that are looking for an extra challenge to put on top of their normal schoolwork. We're gonna run this early summer session June 8th to 19th. You can see we'll have AP Language and Composition, that's the English 11 class. We're gonna have an intensive college counseling session, not for credit, but lots of one-on-one counseling, lots of great advice coming from our college counseling department. This is over and above the kind of normal high level of service that your children get. But this will be like a class that we're actually walking them through. They'll have work to do, they'll have homework assignments, they'll get it done. If they go through this class, they should be in really good shape to apply to colleges, and they can focus on their classes in the fall. A couple of the faith and culture sections, we're breaking faith and culture into 3 trimesters. So your student could take care of one of those sessions, one of those sections during the summer, and then that way they would be freed up to take another elective when they're back in the fall. Health and Human Flourishing 2, we had a lot of interest in the health classes. So Health and Human Flourishing 2 during the early summer session, and then you'll notice that Health and Human Flourishing 1, that's that 9th grade class, will happen during session A. Studio art class and a theology class that Dr. Ratcliffe's going to teach. Session A, I'm calling it Session A because that lines up with our summer programs lingo. So our summer programs officially start then, June 29th, and they have sessions A, B, and C. And so we're going to run the billing through the summer programs office. We want to make sure that the sessions line up for the general audience. So this will be a combination of Stony Brook students, your kids, plus students from the outside who are interested, and we'd love your help in promoting this. We'd like to do a word of mouth campaign. We'll also, of course, be doing social media. We'll be reaching out to all of our alumni to get them to promote it. We'll try to get into some of the local publications so people know that it's out there. But we find that really word of mouth is the best way. You're all networked, you're connected, you know the quality of what we're doing here. And this is a way for your friends who maybe have been hesitant to jump all the way in to the Stony Brook experience. It's a way for them to get a taste, to see what Stony Brook's actually like, to actually see what our teachers are like and what the classes are like. We think that not only is this going to be a great service that we can provide to the island and beyond, but also it's one of our best marketing pieces, because what sells us better than our teachers. So you can see a much broader level of courses here. Most of these are what we would normally call year-long classes, so 3 credit classes that we'll do over the course of 6 weeks. So Algebra 2 honors, AP Calc, AP Language will continue, Bio, Chem, we got College Prep English, English 9 and 10, we've got Humanities 9 and 10, we've got Programming, Economics, Modern Moral Theory, which I'll be teaching, Physics, 2 Spanish classes. You see most of those continue then into sessions B and C, and there'll be a few others that are thrown in there, like some AP microeconomics is in there in session C. There's going to be an applied ethics class in session B. So really, you can choose whatever you like. You could do 2-week single credit class during session A, and then do a full year class during session, or sorry, I gotta get these namings right. It's confusing, I apologize. During the first session, that early summer session, you could do a trimester class, and then you could start a full year class if you want to do 8 weeks of work. If you just want to do a 2-week credit, 1 credit class, great, do that whatever sessions make sense. I want to say up front that we don't yet have this is all new, right? So we don't have a great sense of what the total demand will be for particular classes. So we are going to have to take all the applications in by June 1st, see which classes have enough enrollments to make, and then we will get back to everybody to say whether it's gonna run or not. Obviously, you have a chance to change to a course that has made if you want to, or if you want to pull out at that point, that's fine too. I'm certain that some of these classes will make, just because I know from you all that there's a high demand, particularly on the math classes and the health class. I'm pretty sure that those are going to run. The other ones, it's more like our teachers want to run them. If there's interest, they will run. But the more information we can get early, the better for our planning purposes. So if you are thinking about doing a summer program, a summer class, once we open up applications, we would love it if you would register early so that we can know whether a class is going to make or not. All right, that's what I've got for you all. Thanks for the opportunity to share. We're really excited about this. We think it's going to open up a lot of possibilities, can make it possible for our kids to advance more quickly through the program, and also to consider having a better balance of life. A lot of kids wanting to take 8 classes, and we always say no to that. But this makes it possible that you could actually get some of those classes you're hungry for done during the summer.
Great, thank you, Sean. And let me come back to sharing my screen to finish out. So the other thing in conjunction with summer courses that we're also looking at summer opportunities for social gatherings for our students, assuming that it's allowed. What can we do to facilitate community? It's been a while since we've been together, right? And you think about March heading into the summer, that's a long time that we've been apart. So assuming that the conditions allow, we will want to be continuing to facilitate opportunities to get together. And if the event that we are prevented from doing that, then we will offer things online, as we have done on the weekends during the school year. But our primary goal is to ensure that community is preserved and that your children have an opportunity to connect with each other. And we're happy to facilitate that. As we close up here and move towards questions, I want to say just a couple of things in closing. So from a communication standpoint, what we have heard is that, for example, SBU across the street has said that they will not make a decision relative to whether folks can come back on campus or not until June 30th. So they're letting a lot of clock run, right, to make the best possible decision. As I indicated to you, our goal is to be open in August for normal classes, as we have discussed. But we won't be able to make that decision for certain, I would say, until sometime in June. There's just more data to gather. There's more of this to unfold. And certainly we are dependent on what the government says to us, what they say we will do. At the same time, we will put every effort, as I said, into getting ourselves ready to go for August. But in terms of what it will look like, we will be happy to share. I mean, my goal is to share these scenarios with you as the task force does its work and gives you just a picture of what we're talking about so that you can gain a further confidence level in returning. And so we will be working on that. We'll be sharing that with you as soon as possible. But in terms of ultimate decisions, I don't think anybody's able to make those yet. And what I would look at is a mid-June, possibly late June timeframe for us putting a stake in the ground in terms of when and what we will be doing. Hence my request at the beginning for some flexibility relative to the fall in terms of a physical start date. Because if it's a matter of just having to wait a few more weeks or a month, then we want to do that, because the value of getting everyone back here on campus together is certainly worth waiting for and worth going through whatever protocols we need to go through to satisfy requirements and promote and preserve health. So look, the sun will shine again here. It hasn't felt like it. It's been a very tough go for all of us. We're going on 8 weeks now of being on pause. And that takes a toll. But I'm just reminded again and again that there is life after this, and we will be back to some semblance of normalcy someday soon. So we hold out hope for that, and we walk together as a community, and there's nobody I'd rather be going through this with than you all. I really appreciate all of the encouragement and support that you all have shown to our teachers, to me, to our administrators during this time. You've been a joy to lead and to walk with because of your support. So be encouraged. The sun will indeed shine again. So I'm going to stop the presentation and go to the chat feature and see what questions have been asked, so I can do my best to answer them.
They're all for me, Josh.
They're all for you. All right.
So far.
That's the way it normally goes, isn't it, Sean?
Yeah, kind of. So good question. Will we know who's teaching which class before registering? Yes, that's all actually in the rest of the course catalog that I'm still putting the finishing touches on. So you will know who's teaching what before we offer it. The workload per day, essentially it's a week's worth of work per day. So that's going to be, the same as you would have for 3 meetings. So think of it as a 6-hour commitment, probably. It depends on the kid, obviously, but it's a full-time job. It's very intensive, as I said. We're not cutting back on the content or the expectations. These are legitimate Stony Brook credits, and so they are tough classes. I would not enter it into it lightly, but at the same time, you will have that kind of personalized checkpoint with the teacher every day that I think will be really good for motivating the kids, and they will have high level accountability, because you can't hide when there's at most 4 kids in a class. So if you think your child can benefit from it, I recommend it. If you think that maybe they are not wanting this during the summer, think about it. Your kid. Question about so anything that didn't show up in the course catalog at this point, it either didn't show up because we didn't see a lot of interest in the surveys to the parents, or because the teacher's not available. So there are a lot of questions I'm getting about particular classes or particular services. There's a question about whether a student can take 2 classes at a time. We're going to limit it because of how intensive it is and how we do want them to play outside a bit. We're going to limit it to 1 class per term. So at most, you could take a 1 credit class, a 2-week session right out of the gate, plus a 3 credit or 6-week class. So you can do 2 classes in sequence with each other, but not at the same time. I got a couple questions about classes for 8th graders. And again, that was one of those where there wasn't a lot of survey demand. It just didn't come out in the survey. If I get a surge, I can try to get a teacher to teach something. If you all want to reach out to me and I get a quorum or a group of people that want to take a class together and they're definitely going to do it, then we'll try to find a way to make it work. And then the question about the way that we, if it is overwhelming, can you back out, or is it for credit or not for credit? It's going to be totally up to you whether you take it for credit or not. You can audit a class if you want to, or you can take it for credit. It'll be the same price either way. But if you want to give your kid a chance to get a jump start on next year's class and you just want to sit in on it, don't want to do it for a grade, that's fine. That's allowed. Yeah, so for a 1 credit class, it would be 6 hours per day. Yeah, 6 hours per day. It could be 4 to 6. It just depends on the speed of the student.
I had a question regarding the class night celebration. Will there be awards? The answer is yes. We are working on how we are going to award our students who have achieved this year. And so we should be in a position to communicate the time and the venue and format for that within the week.
I had a question about whether the summer classes are equivalent to a normal class. Yes, they get the same credit. They look exactly the same on a transcript, even AP classes. Obviously, if you take an AP during the summer, you're going to need to review before test time. But it is possible. There certainly is demand for that. Even in other programs, as we did our research, there are other summer programs offering EP classes. but there's no distinction in terms of the content, the quality, or the way that it shows up on a transcript or is interpreted by colleges. It's really just the question of the speed.
Other questions? Sean, I think you dazzled them. It happens.
It's my haircut.
It is your haircut. No doubt. While we're talking about hair, we can all be grateful that I had the vision to get a haircut before this thing happened, because if not, it would have been ugly. Anyway, all right, I am looking at some other questions here. Okay, so here's a great question. There's this a model out there called the high flex model, and the high flex model is a model where some of the students are in the classroom, and some of the students, for whatever reason, if they're immunocompromised or don't feel comfortable coming back to school, they are also in the class as well. So that is certainly part of the planning, to enable students who, for whatever reason, aren't able to come back. And there's a scenario obviously on the table. We are watching borders. By that I mean BORDERS, in terms of what governments will allow from a travel perspective. And that's a big one for us. That's one of those things that really could impact us in a sizable way. But all that's to say, we are committed to keeping our students together at some level, as much as we can. And so whether that's the synchronous high flex model where folks are off-site tuning in to the actual physical class that's happening, or there's some asynchronous content where we've videoed the class and then it's available to folks maybe on a different time zone later on, we're going to be pragmatic and work together to ensure that everybody who wants a Stony Brook education, who's currently enrolled and is coming back next year, can access it. That's very important to us. Okay. Are we using the same textbooks as normal classes? Sean, I think that's for you.
Yes, yeah, we will. So you'll have to get digital textbooks. Unfortunately, that does mean that BOCES won't be available. So you'd be getting the textbooks yourself. We'll be listing all those details in the course catalog as well.
Yeah. So I have a question about sports, and that is certainly a big one. Sports are great when there are other teams to play. And, when a lot of this decision making will be kind of in some ways out of our hands, at least from an interscholastic perspective. We're going to do everything we can to have physical activity on this campus and continue with our sports. We will be dependent on our league in terms of whether they're fielding teams and sponsoring games, and that will be guidance that I'm sure comes to us from a higher power than us. But what I would say is, in the event that we are able to be on this campus, we will find a way to provide physical exercise and the advancement of talents and skills that have been developed here further, so that when we're ready to get back and play, we're not rusty. So that's our commitment. How it works is all part of the scenario planning that we're doing, and it will require us to have a little bit more guidance on what's allowable.
I got a question about whether we'll consider doing online courses again next summer of 2021. I believe this is here to stay. That's my hope and what we're planning for. So I think this is something, crisis reveals character. It also, challenges provide other kinds of opportunities. And we've really seen this as a very fertile time in our school. We've been incredibly creative and we're working really, really hard. And I think what's coming out of that is fruit like this, stuff that you all want and that we can deliver. And I think that the good stuff that's going to come out of here is really going to transform our institution for the better.
I have a question that relates to refunds, and it's a good question. So, as I said, on the website, there's guidance relative to refunds. If you've been impacted by this crisis, then there is a place for you there to petition us, and we're happy to work with you. But what I also want to say in that is what we are doing as an institution is we're doing everything we can to provide funds to ensure that we get through this trough next year. And so we're trying to build a war chest to enable folks to get through the valley, right? Good news for us is we reached our fundraising goal for this year. Every dollar now that is raised from the May until June 30th, end of our fiscal year, will go towards Keep Stony Brook Healthy Fund. We've developed all different kind of financial scenarios based off enrollment. But the goal and the trick is, right, is to make it work. So we've gone pretty extreme from a cost perspective since March 13th, and saving every dollar that we can in order to enable us to go through next year as healthy as we can be. And we're prepared for a whole variety of tools to access in the event that we have to. But I just wanted to let you know that from a financial perspective, to say that we're a very wealthy school would be very unfortunate. We are not. I wish we were. This would be easier perhaps if we were, but we're not. We are tuition dependent, and we are dependent on fundraising, and this has really kind of brought that out. We do hope that the online operation that we are seeking to launch will improve all of our financial futures and will be a real blessing and boon to the school. It's missional first, but it's also certainly economic as we try to bolster this financial strength of this school. But we are tuition dependent. Let's see, what else? Other questions? Right, so here's a question about testing that says, do you foresee, based on discussions with state officials or healthcare professionals, any role of state school-wide antibody testing in being of any use to help reopen safely? And I think, yes, we've had those conversations with folks, and we're gonna really press on this task force, which again has a number of physicians and a member of New York State of Health Board who are gonna help us think through that. We're not a hospital. That's important to say, but at the same time, we want to use all the medical tools at our disposal to think through how we create an environment here where we know we're safe, where if there is an issue, we can address it quickly, and we will be looking to guidance from the state and from Suffolk County to guide us on that. But I'd say yes. I'd say all these tools will be points of discussion and will be implemented in the event that they can keep us safe. Will you do contact tracing in the case a child is sick? Again, the way that normally works in a school setting, let's just say, before COVID, it was, whooping cough or something of that nature. What would happen would be we would find that out, we would report that to the Suffolk County Department of Health, and they would provide the contact tracer who would go and follow. So we're not set up to be contact tracers. We can certainly, from an on-campus perspective, find out who this person was near, but we would seek to employ help from the state. Now, again, the availability of resources is something that we're going to have to find out about. But certainly part of that controlled community does give us a chance to be the best contact tracers we can be, but at the same time, we would seek to lean on some other folks to help us with that. All right, other questions? Will students have access to counseling over the summer? So the answer is, yes. We want to make Chad, without wearing him out, we want to make him as available as possible. And let me just say, we recognize that this is a situation that necessitates care for the mental, emotional, and social well-beings of children. And Chad is really skilled in that area. And so, Chad is one man at this point, but but he is certainly committed to walking with our students through the summer. So in the event that there are ongoing needs that your child has and that you feel like Chad Hardison would be the best person to speak to about those needs, we are prepared to offer services through the summer. Other questions? Will high flex learning be used as part of starting a New York City campus? Possibly. So, we actually, New York City update for those of you who are interested in that aspect. So the Monday of the week that we shut down, so that was like March 9th, we had a very positive meeting with a partner in the city who was prepared to transform their space to enable us to start in New York City. And then, of course, this all happened. So that got pushed to the back burner for obvious reasons. But we've been in contact, and we both are interested in this opportunity, and we're going to pursue it when opportunities allow. But what this has done for us, all this online learning has done, has really given us a chance to think big about what we can do, how many folks we can reach with our mission, and what different locations could look like. So the answer is yes. I mean, I have no question that you are going to see us implement and utilize online learning, not only in your children's lives, but also in the lives of other children who can now access Stony Brook, and basically create this infrastructure that can be moved across the country, across the world. We believe our mission is that important. And when the time comes, we will continue to pursue those options that get our mission out to farther reaches of the earth. Okay. Any major faculty changes that are already confirmed? So we have a couple of major faculty changes only because they're either retiring or moving out of state. So Martha Pavo, our long-term Latin teacher, 26 years at the Stony Brook School, will be retiring at the end of this year, moving to the city to be with her husband, who is there. And then Karen DiRuggiero, who has been the dorm head of Alexander and pre-calc and other math courses teacher, will be moving back to Georgia, where her family is. Her youngest child is a graduate class of 2020. And so those are the two folks who are going to be moving on. Mr. Beck, who stood in for Mr. DeMarle at English, he is finishing up his little stint here. And I've had a couple of conversations where he's asked me, what did you get me into when you asked me to come and be here for a couple of months? It's a valid question by him, but he'll be leaving. And so we're filling the English position. We've got folks we're talking to both on the math and the Latin side, and we are seeking to replace those folks. Okay, in the event that you have to limit population on campus, how will you determine how many? And if we've already enrolled, is there a possibility that we will not be able to attend SPS? So, the determination, so we've walked through our classrooms, measured them out, and based off a 6-foot distance, we can fit about 8 students into a classroom. Okay, some of our classrooms vary, but let's just play with that number for a little bit. 8 students in a class at a time if social distancing measures are enforced. So what that means is you've got to get pretty creative on scheduling. And you have a couple of options. You can extend your school day to do that. You can have students come, day students come 3 days a week, different days in order to keep your class sizes down. But certainly if you've been admitted to SBS and you've re-upped and you're planning to come next year, we can find a way to get you here and find a way to make sure that you get an outstanding education that furthers your child's learning during this time. Right, so if all goes well,